We're going to start with a centering practice if you want to. If you don't want to, just hang out the next few minutes. Because it's tight in here, we'll probably all practice seated, but it's an option to do it on whatever plane or level you want to practice. First, just let yourself start to get curious. The way these rooms are set up, it's like there's a stage and put my attention there. See if some of that attention can be inside of you, directed towards you. And we so often do everything, but also practice with um, kind of energy of control rather than curiosity. So I want to invite us to be curious about ourselves in this moment. Who are we? How do we feel? What could we learn about ourselves even now? And dropping in, notice if there are thoughts that are coming to you. And without hanging on to the content of them, is there a quality to those thoughts? Are they moving quickly? Are they moving slowly? Are they sharp? Are they soft? What mood are you in? What moods? And then noticing sensations. What's happening in your body right now, in your being? And rather than kind of clinging on to a sensation, we can make room for them. So just create some space in your awareness for what's happening inside of you on all those levels: mood, thought, sensation, without clamping down or rejecting as much as we can. Just allowing ourselves to be with what is. And in this practice, we center first by sort of connecting to that part of us that kind of sits deep in us. Could be like your pelvic bowl, this region down here, but it's really a 360 field almost, that anchoring part of your body. See if you can invite your breath into that place. So we're not forcing our breath down, but there's an invitation in your belly for more breath. Bring your attention here so that you can actually sit in this place. And from here, kind of anchor in this place, but we get curious about our own bodies and get curious about our bodies top to bottom. Bringing breath towards the energy of rooting through our lower bodies to the chairs beneath us, through the concrete to the ground, to the earth, even further to the core of the earth. Can you feel for that place with your body, with your being? What needs to loosen or let go? What needs breath? And can you also simultaneously feel yourself or open yourself to what's above, existing in that space between the ground and the heavens, the sky? And you might get curious, is there a part of me that's hiding? Is there a part of me that's trying to prove? Those are places we could look. Like maybe I can bring some breath, some attention to any posturing or unnecessary protection that might be here in this room. Sometimes we need to protect, but you can assess how much do I need here. And here you might take on the energy or the quality of dignity. Get curious about that. What does dignity feel like in you? Dignity being that inherent worthiness that no one can take. They can try to convince you out of it, but the truth is your dignity. In a room full of people feeling their inherent dignity, again, that's not about proving or you got to be small so I can be big. Feeling that as we continue to move towards a world that makes room for all of us to be in our dignity. Notice how you do that, what it feels like, and where it's hard. And we don't have to force it, just get curious. And then feeling here in our width, you can feel side to side. You can feel the actual width of your, what's happening ear to ear, shoulder to shoulder, softening your gaze, collarbones. And you can kind of scan your body and see if there are places that could soften open, like a big one of those old dictionaries falling open. You lay it on the table and letting yourself be revealed, letting yourself be here, and feeling their edges, limits, boundaries. And then feeling for each other. And feeling it's like listening from the sides of you, listening from your skin to the people next to you, to the people in this room, allowing yourself to be permeable and being with each other. How does your body do withness? Connection, belonging. And then centering here, so we've felt depth, length, width, connection. Let's feel our depth front to back, back to front. It's like juiciness to me. It's like your volume. See if you can feel your back body on the chair, maybe the back of your head, whatever it might be. See if there's a place in your back body where you can arrive more, bring more listening, more attention, where there's sensitivity, where you can perceive what's behind you without turning around, who's behind you, the life behind you. And then feeling into your body, into your density, and to your front body, feeling yourself on the edge of this moment, this time, feeling your front, your face, clothes on your body, whatever brings you there. And let yourself really arrive here to this moment with the least amount of effort in a way, the least amount of protection that you need, the least amount of whatever it might be. Just arrive as open as you can be. And lastly, let's just call forward in our centering and from our centers. What do you care about? What is worth organizing your life around? Say it to yourself and let it move through your tissues, through your body, through your face, wherever it needs to reverberate. Let it actually shift something in you so that you can live that more, so you can be that more, so it's not a secret. So if I meet you, I'm go, oh, okay, I can kind of feel what that person is about. Become it. And just feel yourself for a moment in a room with people with cares, commitments, love, purpose. And as we close the practice, maybe take a moment just to Either just perceive with your body or look around the room if you dare. The room full of miracles, humans, acknowledge each other. Thank you. Thanks for practicing. We'll get in.
Thank you so much. Oh, someone, yeah, let's go. Love on. um, we want and encourage audience participation. So if you feel called to it, let it come through. Um, it's I've got the weird job of being a panelist and chair, so you're gonna have to extend me some grace. But what I first want to do is just like take a moment to acknowledge all of you and those that couldn't be with us today, those that have willed us into this moment, who've prayed us into this moment, those that are online, and those that are at our backs that enable us to be here. And I'm like looking around the room, and I'm just like, it's a sea of like beauty and love, like folks who've 20 years in movement, elders, youth, new friends, new comrades. And so just really beautiful that you're all here to receive Prentis. And earlier, we wanted to welcome you and acknowledge you. And for folks who don't know this particular trip, we've been trying to collaborate for a couple of years, and the moment is now. And this particular trip is really short, and Prentis has been so generous with their time, in a way that is so that fierce generosity that our movements are calling for, and really just wanting to extend a moment to witness you with more folks who are witnessing you, to thank you and be in gratitude again and again, for loving us into the future, and especially Black folks, whose liberation is entangled with all of ours, and being in such a deep, consistent rigor and commitment, which is hard to do, especially in these times. So just thanking Prentis and Marai could say the exact same for you as well. So I want to acknowledge you and witness you and see you in the very same way. So yeah, starting with gratitude and acknowledgement. Um, I'm now going to go into chair mode. So we've got a few questions and that we've kind of gathered and collated together, and then we'll throw out for you all to, um, yeah, ask what you want to ask within reason. Um, but we are fairly like open and spicy, so let let's see. We can also practice consent and no. So embodied no's. Um, for some reason, I might give this to you. I might have to go completely rogue.
Wow.
If anybody can.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Okay, amazing. So, to open up the space, we thought we'd have a little bit of spacious time to hear from both of you and myself. It's very weird to say. Um, to introduce yourself, to respond or reflect on what is calling you right now. What are you in service to, and what is the work or the practice you are in, and why? So there's a loads of questions because you can take it in any way you feel called, and I'll just repeat them if anyone was curious about the question. What is calling you right now? What is the work, the practice you are in, and why? What are you in service to? And I'll start off with Prentis.
I don't need to do like a formal who am I can just answer these questions, or do you want me to do that?
Let's go a little bit more. It's up to you.
No, no, it's fine. The other day I was being interviewed and I said, I think, if there is a hell, it is somebody reading your bio over and over again forever. That one's really hard for me. Well, first, I'm just really grateful to be with you all and to be here. I feel so welcomed, and it's been such a warm reception. And I've gotten to practice with folks today, and I've learned so much in that practice, and I just feel a lot of gratitude. Um, so I teach embodiment. I don't know. It's kind of an odd, language fails that because it's something that is unique to everyone, your experience of your own aliveness and body. And it's something that I'm committed to creatively facilitating people's reintroduction to themselves and their felt experience of their lives. So there are practices associated with that, but there's also just a completely artistic process of meeting people and trying to support them in coming back. So that's what I've committed to in my life is doing that work and doing it with myself, being on path. Um, which yeah, sometimes I'm like, why did I commit to being on this path? Because everything that I do or everything I teach, you have to do it. You have to like do the work yourself. And so it has required me to go into a lot of deeply uncomfortable places in my own story, in my own life, my relationships. But it's the commitment that I've made in this life that feels like it predated my conscious decision making. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going into the fire over and over again this life. Um, and, right now this work feels especially important, I think, to move towards your question. In the context where I live and where I'm from, I grew up in the US South. I live in the US South. My family, since their arrival on that land, have lived in the US South. I'm the one that went away for some number of years and then came back. And some days I'm like, why did you come back here? um, and especially now. And I think some of what I would say about this moment and what I'm practicing is that I really see, I can really understand what kind of worlds we create when we are separated from our experience, from the texture, the feeling, the intimacy of our lives, what that opens up in the impossibility of exploitation, incredible violence, overwork, or, you know, kind of wrenching ourselves of our own life and energy. Um, this disembodiment or this separation, this mind body split thing that they talk about, this fiction that they created that's possible, allows for so much injustice to persist. And so I feel joyfully, in some ways, committed to free bodies and feeling free in our bodies. And I can see all of the little ways that we've gotten tricked from that. And I think this moment of just compounding complex crises, it almost feels counterintuitive, but I really strongly believe that it's going to require a kind of embodiment and capacity, depth of feeling, depth of relationship, wisdom that is going to increasingly become harder to experience. And that's kind of the tricky thing that we're in right now. So this is what I'm thinking about a lot. It's like reactivity, the ways that we, our attention and our energy, we get tricked out of it, and out of our agency and out of our perception. We guard against relationship and being known, needing each other, all these things. Those are exactly the things that we need to navigate such a complex moment. Do y'all feel what I'm saying? Do you understand? Y'all with me? Okay. Again, I tell you, I'm from the South, so I'm like, we be talking. You know what I mean? Um, so that's what I'm in right now. Is like, how do we practice at the scale, depth that is necessary for the times that we are in? And how do we become the people and the peoples that can meet this moment with a gravity, with a love, with a riskiness, all of that I think it's going to require? How do we do that? Those are the big questions for me. I don't have the answers, but I think we all just keep practicing, right? We keep shedding and we keep getting clearer until we kind of weave together. You know, the answer actually is not going to come from, let me articulate the answer to you. The answer will be our practice. It will be how we move together. That's where the answer will be. Did I answer your question? Did I touch on it? I mean, look, I could talk for a long time, but I want to hear y'all too. So,
Thank you. Thank you. Ancestral greetings, everyone. Oh, Farzana asked big questions. Prentis, thank you for that response. So, my name's Marai. I cause trouble. That's my job. I also time travel. That's also my job. And in many ways, that's, if I think about what's calling me right now, I need to be really honest with you. Is I'm here on assignment. Um, so I'm in deep conversation as much as I possibly can be with my beloved ancestors, and I'm trying to listen like really carefully for their instructions. And I don't mean that in a woo-woo way in a family. I mean that in like getting clear. Um, Ancestor Octavia Butler, my daughter over there, shared with us recently, how Octavia Butler gave us instructions on how to, you know, like read what was coming, like, right? And so I look there, I look to the place of memory. I'm called to always look to the place of memory and the places that erasure has occurred, to like stitch those pieces back together so that we can remember more clearly and to get guidance around how we navigate this moment. But navigate this moment, and this is really like Prentis and I were talking the other day, and when we were thinking about this conversation, and one of the things that you said was the maturity that we need for this moment. And for me, there is something about the maturity, and then also like this moment now, and what are we moving towards? And the other piece that calls me is imagination. So memory and imagination, because I'm like, we're out here in movement and we don't want to imagine freedom. We don't want to taste it. We don't want to smell it. We're like, yeah, collective liberation. I'm like, yeah, but what? Can you feel it? And I understand why we don't feel it. Like that's not me judging us. That's just like how I know, like doing gender-based violence work, ending violence against women and girls work, saying to people, what would it look like to end it? And just knowing that we it's easier for us to be like, I can imagine the world done easier than I can imagine ending it. So we can imagine the end of the thing more easily than we can imagine our freedom, and that bothers me. So I'm in service to being a doula for that imagination, right? Like I'm like, particularly Black radical imagination. I want to hold that and nurture that and bring that into the world so that we can then imagine and we can practice from the place of our imagination, right? As well as from our memory. So I'm just out here trying to ting. That's like literally, I'm just trying. And I don't, and part of why I practice is I practice because I'm in deep grief, and I avoid practice when I'm in deep grief. And I practice because, and Fazan, I've said this before, I practice because I want us to practice because I love us. And I want us to be in this because I love us enough to want us to be free. and I want Mother Earth to be fully free. And I want us to learn from this moment and pull ourselves together in such a way that our inherent, like our leaning or entire posture is towards our freedom, but not freedom that's about power over other bodies and over the planet, but freedom that has us be in deep relationships. So freedom is only freedom if it's collective. It's only, there's no liberation if it's not collective liberation, because then it's mine at the expense of yours, and that's not the thing that we're doing right now. So I'm just out here loving us. That's what I'm doing.
Imagine trying to go after these two. What do I have to say? Event's over, guys. Let's go home. Um, you touched on a lot of things that I would want to also reflect on, particularly this piece of path. So much of how the world has been organized has been around human supremacy and a deliberate dismemberment of spirit, of land, of ancestors, of other realms beyond what can be extracted from, dominated, brutalized, which also includes our bodies. And so when arriving to this work or being in this work feels like path, and increasingly I've been talking about politicized somatics as dullering the soul back into our bodies, but also to all life and living worlds and plant nations. Like we're reanimating and coming into right size and right relationship with the living worlds. And so what I'm in commitment to is life and our aliveness. And that also includes death, because certain things have to die. And we have to have an intimate relationship with what needs to die in order to also be able to have space and capacity for all of that aliveness that doesn't have room yet because other things are occupying that space. And so, and that's an ongoing practice and inquiry that's very alive in my soul. um, right now, we are in the context of global fascism. It's not just a US thing, it's across the world, and we are all deeply entangled with it. And we've got, polycrisis, from mass austerity to what we've done and what has been done to Earth and Earth Mother. And in every way, it's crisis. And what crisis reveals is opportunity for creativity and collaboration, and to really come into a rigorous form of relationality, of deep kinship that has been taken away from us, our capacity to connect. And it's almost like we've been de-skilled and dehumanized from the fundamental part of what it means to be human, which is to be designed for connection and belonging. And so a lot of what we're doing at Healing Justice in Prentis's work, I work with Marai and many of you here, we're in that inquiry of like, how do we have capacities and competencies and skillfulness to be able to practice a new way, embody a new way, and bring it into existence, will it into existence, and willfully do that. Things that I'm holding or being called to right now is that this imagination piece, that we are living in some people's imaginations, and this has been designed and constructed and with a lot of intention, with a lot of might, with a lot of resource. And so a key piece is like, how are we designing and the new futures we want, especially given, and this might be a bit of a reach for some folks, that we in movement, we're designing with visions to win, yet our context, our shapes, our conditions set us up, are almost programmed for us to not win. And I think we're not often being honest about that, where our left has more work to do, and really be grounded in reflecting on those bits so that we can move differently, so we can have more choicefulness. And a particular thing that I'm really increasingly noticing or tracking in this global context or pattern of fascism is, I'm less convinced, or I'm more convinced, that we say violence is something that's like happening to us, and then we need to like heal from it. But I think our stress responses, the way that we become who we are under stress, is also designed and by intent. The fact that under stress we're less able to connect, less able to be curious, less able to be creative, is also willful on the side of our aggressors and oppressors. And it's something the pennies only just dropped for me recently, which is like, hey, not only are we being subject to violence, but these stress responses, these survival responses are engineered to keep us uncertain, precarious, and divided, polarized, fragmented, atomized. And so I'm really committed to what is the work that we need to do to be able to find each other in the dark with less resources, and to commit to each other's life and to be life affirming. And the thing that I'm trying to practice is play. And we just talked about play, because it's an invitation to suspend reality in moments where we don't know what we can do, but also to find new shapes in ourselves. And something I've struggled to say, but I want to name it here as a practice, is being in life affirming power and life affirming strength, because we need all of us leaderful and powerful and strong, and to be able to own that and claim that as ways of being having agency and being accountable. So that's my practice that I'm calling to myself. Yeah. You guys want to add anything before we go to the next question?
I want to add a tiny thing. Um, and this is an ancestral piece in terms of like a place of learning for me. So, as someone who descended from people that were enslaved in the Caribbean, our ancestors were trafficked and um, had to labor on those plantations. And you had people from a whole range of different contexts flung together on the plantation. And one of the things that I know about my people is that we learned to make, in Jamaica, you'd say you make something from nothing. So on the deep stress, and this is not me, this is not me making stress okay. But what I want to say is on the deep stress and brutal conditions, people learn to build and plan and revolt and dance and make music and create art. And so we have lessons, like we have survival strategies that have been passed down to us from people that have gone before us. And so when I say about time travel, I'm pointing to, this is not fluffy. This is like, seriously, what have we learned from those who have gone before us? Because I believe that when my ancestors was put on them ships, they thought that the world would have ended. They must have done. So as we face world-ending moments, like, do we dare to imagine? Do we dare to come together? And do we dare to create together? Because I think that's what this moment is inviting us to do, right? Like, we could be absolutely, and I understand the desperation. I feel desperate. And I also, my ancestors won't give me permission to stay there, right? Like, they're like, get back and do what you need to do.
So we hear the word healing a lot, and that can feel very loaded, and it can also feel like, what does it mean to heal? Really, what does it mean to heal? And that's your inquiry, right? And so to both of you, what is the conversation about healing that you want to have? And maybe we can start with you, Marai. Okay.
No.
And we were getting on so well. Like, this was going so well. Okay. Ah, I think when we were practicing today, Prentis said something around, and I'm paraphrasing, like, healing can sometimes get packaged as this finite thing, like, like medical industrial complex, go doctor, get fixed, them kind of things. Um, for me, healing is like, it's a journey. And one of the things that I'm grappling with all the time with healing is like we're trying to be in healing work, we're trying to be in a relationship with reclaiming our bodies, etc., and we're doing that while the system is still fucking with us. Sorry, I wouldn't get through the night without the F word. I'm so sorry. And so it feels challenging, it feels complicated, and I think for many of us are just reaching for different practices and different medicine in order to hold and support us to like be in right relationship with each other and our movements or families. Like for me, I'm just like, if I can love upon my children a little bit more, that can feel like a win. If I can, my grandson came by today and he was extra cute, and that felt really healing. And so I'm like, how can we find medicine in all the different places? That's kind of where I am with the conversations about healing. I also feel like we can't keep being in movement without doing or healing work, whatever that looks like. Because for me, the healing work is also how we attend to some of the harm that we have brought into ourselves and that we're inflicting on each other. And so the healing work is also like a core part of our accountability. If we don't if we don't start cleaning up some of our shit, yeah, then we're mimicking the behaviors that we are so critical of, right? So that's also part of the healing work for me. And I think about or different ways of being embodied as an important part of that, like how we invite ourselves back into our bodies and how we draw for different traditions and different ways of being to support that. So whether that's through dance or through music or through plant medicine or whatever the thing is, I'm like, we have some work to do right now, which is like our healing work, not as adjacent to it, but as core to how we build movement. You wrote the book.
Yeah, but that wasn't going to be the title. um, I was convinced into that title. No. Y'all are troublemakers up here in the front. Well, I think I've already kind of alluded to it earlier. The title was gonna be "Becoming the People for Our Time." That's what the title. See, where were y'all when I was in those meetings? I was like, "This is the title." Um, but in a way, I was like, "Okay, we can do this title," but it's sort of an illusion, People are like, "Oh, I want to know what it takes to heal," and you pick it up, and I'm like, "Ha ha," you know. um, though I do, offer some ideas about it. Um, the way that I hold it in part is healing is, I think I say this in the book, it's the restoration of relationship with our own experience, relationship with ourselves, our bodies, relationship with each other, relationships within our ecosystem. To me, the web of relationships is the reality of life. And all the traumas and the breaks that we experience that take us away from that reality. Healing is what restores that relationship, that capacity for relationship. Um, yeah, and it's not a destination. You don't arrive there, you don't get there, you don't go, oh, and I did it, because the relationship continues. And we were talking about parenting. I have a 3-year-old, and she's very skillful. I'm like, okay, I got this parenting thing down. We know how to go to bed. We're going to the potty. We're playing. We got this. And she's like, I know how to get that one spot you hadn't seen. And that's what we do in relationships. Relationships rub up against the parts of you that are unconscious to you. So healing doesn't get completed. Ah, okay. That one hit a little bit. All right. All right. Okay, let's see what else I got. Um, but that's the gift of being with each other. It's like, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't see that coming. Oh, I didn't know that was still there. And that's, to me, it's the process of being alive. And I wish I could say, I think we all want. They're like, well, at what point does it stop? What point do you just get the hang of this thing? Right. I do really believe that the for me, this is the purpose is to learn. The purpose is to get stuck and unstuck. You know, purpose is to get agitated and have the resource to look at it, to feel it, to move differently. That to me is the point of it. You're supposed to learn your stuff. We're supposed to learn our stuff. And I mean, I like it. Doesn't mean it makes sense to me, but it seems to be what we're doing here. Um, yeah, and I think it's like I was just thinking about healing as you were saying it again. I was like, something about that word, something about that word. It does kind of have forgetfulness or something to it. It's like I went through it. I want to heal so it can be gone. Something about that I feel in that word. Like, be done with it. Let it be over. There are plenty of things I want to be over that I want to be done. And I think there's something about healing as a learning, as a part of it that because it's also, when you talk about community accountability or something like that, it's like this pain that we're experiencing is a learning for us. It's a learning for our whole community too, because it's happened in this context. And even if not everybody's implicated, there's something for us to know about the culture of how we get down, the way we get down, what we do and do not say, what our practices are. There's something for us to know about this pain that should necessarily change the way we do what we do, because we are this learning organism together. So healing to me is the openness to that relationship to life, is to be in that. But to get there, we were practicing earlier today, we need support, we need resource, we need holding, we need space, we need time, we need arms to fall into. You know what I'm saying? To get there, we need that. And a lot of us don't have that. We don't offer that. We don't give that. Or as we were practicing earlier, it might be there, but we looking at people like, how do I? I say one of the hardest things to guide people towards that I think is so necessary for healing is surrender. Is the falling into someone's presence, into someone else, or however you conceptualize that, the falling into, the letting go, the experience even of our own powerlessness sometimes. People don't want to do that. They're like, how do I get to the healing without doing that? And in a way that can lead us to all kinds of things for different reasons. You can ruminate on something. You can just keep holding it in a certain place, but still at bay. You got to fall underneath it. Y'all know what I'm saying? You got to fall underneath it sometimes, but we need the space, we need the resource, we need the support to do that. And I say, as a practitioner, most of the time, I think I say this in the book too, but most of the time, my work is to stand on the shore. So that you fall under the wave, but you know that I'm there. And I stay with you. I can't have the experience you have. I haven't lived the life that you have, but I can be open to how it touches my life, how it changes my perspective. And I can, as a practitioner, as a friend, as a loved one, as someone who cares, I can stand. That's what it means for me to hold space. I stand on the shore. I hold your hand as you go under the thing. You surrender to it, allow it to wash over and through you. But as you move through it, the holding of the hand becomes the important thing. Do you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? You go under it, and that's the, oh God, I'm going under it, I'm going under it. Ah. And then at some point you'll go, oh, your hand. Oh, you're here. That connection, that relationship, that resource. To me, that's coming back into it. That is part of the process of healing. So I think it's so, I've been doing movement work for a long time, and yeah, people would say healing. Okay, y'all do that over there later. Just don't get in the way. Or when we started to do healing work, people would be like, and you're the reason why all our organizations are falling apart. Do y'all do that over here? Because that's what that's what people be talking about over there. And some of y'all like, mm-mm. I still think that. um, but when I think about a vibrant ecosystem of movement, or another way of thinking about that for me is like presenting an alternative way of being alive and together and making decisions together, and we shorthand that as movement. We have to have places for the processing of that. Now, does every organization have to do that? No, but there should be a place in an ecosystem where people can go underneath. Because a lot of us are holding stuff and we just be holding it, and it be seeping out and leaking out because it's unconscious to us, because we haven't had the time, space, resource to look at it. So I'm having an argument with you, but I'm also having an argument with my mother through you. And is it your responsibility? Must you bear the whole weight of the things that I have not processed? You know what I'm saying? But it's unconscious to me. And there's a reason why it's unconscious to me, because I haven't had the time, space, resource to get clear on what I'm angry about, what I'm hurt about. And so it's going to come out because it's there waiting. That's the thing about it. It doesn't go away. It's just you're sitting there in the wings like, okay, I'm about to hitch on. Oh, you getting mad? Okay, I'm about to jump onto that right now. And I'm going to come with such a force and such a velocity that's not even about this person or this moment or this organization, but it's something I need to express, and I haven't done it. So talk about time traveling. We be time traveling all the time with each other. And the challenge of finding presence, of finding out what we can do now together, figuring out what's possible in our relationships now. Healing is about more of you being present right now. Most of you being in this moment. That's an indicator of healing. Can most of me be here? Or am I hanging out in 2003? Talking to you. So that's what it means to me. Sorry, I was about to get preaching, but yes, that's the.
Um, I'm still in the last conversation.
In
um,
the Southern Church.
Minister Prentis. um, it's really weird and annoying and shooting yourself in the foot when you're called healing justice, because we situated ourselves within a framework. We healing justice as a framework, and we're like, we didn't start anything new. We're just part of a continuum and body of work that looks and sounds like healing justice. And many of us are community healers, keeping each other alive in roles that is really in deep commitment to our survival and also our thriving. But it does exactly that work where we're consistently being invited to relentlessly be in ongoing, like, say like the work is working you. And really, like, I'm like, sometimes should we have been just called like joy or something, and it might have been a bit lighter, the load. And so if you're trying to like organize a movement or collective, like think about your name really well. Um, but a lot of the times folks will come to healing justice and there's such a deep longing for exactly that ecosystem of healing. And the reality is the depth and breadth and scale of healing that we need ancestrally, ongoingly, has to be scaled. Like we need, and we need infrastructures and also an appropriate assessment of what holds what healing. Like the fact that unstable housing or poor quality air or ableism, all these different forms of structural oppression, one organization or a few organizations can't do that structural piece. And we need more of us doing the work structurally to build the life affirming infrastructures, and then also to be the life affirming infrastructures wide, collective, in practice. It's not going to be it's never going to be one organization or one space or one zone, and we really need to like broaden out that capacity. And particularly one thing that often folks will share with us and reflect, and we reflect on this at Healing Justice and invoking two beloveds, Enkem and Defo, who's trained with us and trained with many of you here in the UK, you know, often says like you can't heal under oppression, because it's like you're talking about it as if it's like a destination or a place that you're getting to. And she often gives the analogy of like being cut and you're trying to like heal that cut while you're constantly being cut. And then this is where I think this pivot of like expansion, what is the medicine here, what is the learning here, how do I become resource, how do we collectivize resource, so we're not bottlenecking but actually expanding out. And you know, in our own way, we've kind of neoliberalized in our movement self-care as well by putting it in not just as individuals of who we expect will provide our healing, wrong dynamic, savior complex all over again, but also like where that can happen. Um, but the weight of that, those divisions of labor are still racialized, are gendered, and class based. And so we really need to reorganize, and that for that reorganization to happen, all of us have to be in training because we are in commitment to loving us. And so holding this thing of like, we want to be able to heal not just as recovery, but also to uncover so much genius and wisdom that gets held down and repressed because we're not able to imagine, we're not able to connect, we're not able to have spaciousness and feel our vastness. And I just really appreciated, Prentis, you offering us this particular reframe into healing. And then I'm like hearing a beloved ancestor, Toni Morrison, and in, you know, it says like sometimes you don't, our healing is that pursuit of wholeness, and sometimes we don't survive whole, sometimes we survive in part, but the grandeur of life is the attempt. And like this is a time where we've got to gather each other's parts because we're so atomized, and not all of us are training in that. And that's like, and I think to our ancestral and cultural heritages where healing was a way of life, the song was medicine, the dance was medicine, the shivering, receiving people after conflict and like holding them with loving presence, praying over people, moments of transition. So it wasn't just that all of this trauma or impact or intensity or stress was getting compounded, but you had moments of processing with others. You had moments of witnessing with others and being seen and being known. And I know that in South Africa, there's a particular greeting where you greet by saying, I see you. Like that is the way in which you encounter each other. So also bringing in that a lot of what we are pursuing in healing is native, and there is skillfulness and practice needed to do that uncovering, because we're still with our trauma, with our stress responses, moving from the shape of trauma and the shape of our conditions. And if we want to have different choices and not move from those spaces, then we got to do that work. And you know, Marai is so, you know, I often talk about you as the spine because you consistently give us receipts and also hold us upright. And one of the things that you remind us of is that in our movements, like we are walking wounds and our wounds become weapons. And we do not have time, not only to not organize amongst ourselves, but the right has organized so many unlikely folks to construct what we're living in right now. And we are so brittle, unwelcoming. We don't know how to hold contradiction. We do not know how to onboard people into movement. We don't know how to be an embrace for people who don't look like us, who are not woke literate. I'm just hearing like, yeah, like, what were we called? Tofu eating wokarati. Like if we're not like tofu eating wokarati, then folks are not welcome. And there's a lot of work we've got to do because that isn't always malicious, and that's not always from othering. Often that's from safeguarding and trying to create safety in our movements. And how do we create more embodied sense of safety so more folks can come in wherever they are and be received and be witnessed and be part of movement, so we can turn this shit around. Okay, last question, and then we may or may not have the time for a short energizer, and then open to up to folks. So we had a question which was, what do our movements need right now, and how do we cultivate and nurture that? However, the question seems more fitting and aligned to this, which is, how do we become the people for our time?
Oh, that means so much to me. I feel like you started to really speak to this just now. Um, I think all the things that you were just saying about what we kind of have to embody in this moment if our movements are going to not only grow, but even hold what we have. And this embodied sense of safety, I just want to underline that piece. Um, I was telling someone recently, it's like there's a nuance here in our needing each other, in our connection and our interdependence. Because there's also a part of me in myself that I've cultivated that is actually not contingent on you being able to, and maybe this is me growing up where I did and how I did, that there was a part of me that I could not make it contingent on people's ability to see me and understand what I am. I used to, did y'all watch Peanuts, Charlie Brown? You know, other teachers would be like, wah, 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 wah. I used to joke that when I grew up, I felt like I went to a predominantly white school when I was a kid in a town in Texas. Whatever stereotype you have, that's what I'm talking about in this moment. And I felt like when I would talk sometimes that people only heard wah 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 wah. They couldn't register me. They couldn't perceive me. You know what I'm saying? And our humanity, the depth of it, the depth of my emotion, my knowing, it just was not readable, legible in that context. And I learned in that world that I could either try to force their stories into me, to check everything that I did against this lie that I was kind of being that was being forced on me. I was like, that's an internalizing process. I can take this lie and I can like check myself at every angle. Or I can live outside of that, which means I might be lonely sometimes. I might be disappointed. I might grieve. I might be like, damn, I wish you could see me. I wish you could understand me. But I was unwilling to make my being contingent on their ability to see me. Do you understand what I'm saying? And even in doing that, even if you are alone doing that, it still holds the portal open for that other world, for that other way. Even if these folks don't see me, one day somebody's going to go, wait, me too. Me too. So I say that to say that I think we talk about becoming the people for our time. There is both a tenderness and availability for connection that I think is important for us to cultivate in this moment. There's also a kind of sturdiness in a way that doesn't allow yourself to become so contingent. And it's going to be hard because there's, it's like the myth making, the storytelling about who we are and what we are. It's like, okay, they're upping it in a way. And there's consequences to safety. And I want us in ourselves to have that sense of safety, not that we will be safe or that it's guaranteed that nothing will happen to us. I don't think that that's real. Just to be honest. But there's something in me that can't be touched, even if you touch me. Do you understand what I'm saying? Even if you touch me, there is something in me that cannot be touched by you. And we have to live like that now. We have to know that if you've gotten too far from that, that is the thing to cultivate in this moment. Because that is what will open up the portals. That is what will open up the channels. That is what we need to build around cultivating. That is what we have to teach those that come after us. I always talk about that song, This Little Light of Mine, that the old folks would sing when I was little. And I'm like, that is a genius song. That is genius. And I mean it. All through the night, no matter what, that is going to shine in me. There is something in me that this world can't touch. If this world can't understand me, can't read me, there is something beyond this construction of reality that exists, and I know it. And you can't turn me away from it. You can't tell me I don't know it. So that kind of, one of my teachers and who I teach with, she talks about self-possession. That kind of self-possession, I think, is important for us to cultivate in this time and in all time. And, when we talk about scale and healing, I'm like, ceremonies. We're going to have to do some ceremonies, y'all. We're going to have to do some ceremonies. Where I live, and when I turn on, well, I guess I turn on my phone. I don't really turn on the television. But I would say the right, where they have ceremonies. I'm like, UFC is a ceremony right now. You know what I'm saying? They have ceremonies around their values that is helping people to embody their values, their frameworks, their ways of being. We're going to go ahead and remix Christianity. We don't do empathy no more. You know what I'm saying? And we're going to create rituals around that so that you embody that over time. What are the ceremonies and rituals? So we're not just intellectualizing this stuff. And even in somatics, embodiment work, I'm like, do we want the body or not? Because we be talking about the body all day long. And you got to keep your body real still. You got to feel it. Just feel it in your body. I don't want to see it. But just feel it real deeply. And I'm like, y'all, this is the time to really have the movement, to have the ceremony, to enter into that space, to shake it off, to allow yourself to look weird to the people that already think you're weird. You know what I'm saying? They already think you're weird. So that part of you that you've internalized, it's always like, what do they think of me now? We're going to go ahead and put those parts to sleep, to rest. You've done your work. You got me here. And now we're going to have to go into this whole other plane, this realm, where we get a little stranger and a little freer. We do things that are illegible to them, but legible to us, that point to something that we can't see right now. That kind of stuff is what I'm talking about. When we talk about scale, we ain't gonna get to scale unless we do weird stuff. We're not. We're not gonna get to scale unless we do big, weird things. And quiet, small, weird things. And whisper secrets and shake our bodies and decide that we won't recreate this world inside of our own flesh. That is the way right now, I think. So.
It's perfect. I'm going to go next because I want Marai to conclude this section before we go to Q&A. All of the things. The things that I wanted to touch on are how do we become the people we need right now and what our movements need. We need really bold visions that are unifying enough or broad enough that more of us can come. And I think sometimes our visions are very narrow, or as you pointed out, we can't even imagine that, and we can't imagine it for all of us. We can only imagine it for those that we feel we belong to, or those that belong to us. And so how do we have a broad enough vision that holds more of us? How do we have strategies that can be sustained for long enough that we're moving in that direction? And then how are we in practice, in transformative action for that vision and strategy to be forwarded? And really also, like, we do not study the right enough, because the right, as you said, are amazing at this. Like you said, they're having ceremonies, they have rituals, it's like, this for me is forms of also spiritual warfare. They're in our minds, they're in our bodies, they're in, they've captured us in so many different ways, and we are living out that particular programmed or programmatic way that the world has been designed. And how do we reclaim ourselves back from that? And that does require the big experiments, and that does require cross-sectorial, multiracial, multi-class, bold, big movements, and being able to tolerate that level of growth in ourselves, with each other. Because what happens is we start something and then we're afraid. Again, our stress responses come in, our trauma responses come in, and we're afraid of that growth. And sometimes that's beautiful, because it's fidelity to integrity, it's fidelity to intimacy. And some of those things we have to also know what's good enough, what is possible right now, what can we work with in this moment. And so really holding that we want to be able to grow these bold movements, and looking at the right and how they've been able to mass organize globally, and not do things in the way that they've done them, but seeing that they've had 50 to 100-year spans. They've got resources that we do not have, but they've also touched things that people need and tried to meet that, like ideas of belonging, of safety, meeting people's, or promises of meeting people's material needs. And we should be assessing and tracking, where are we able to do that? And I think some of my longings, particularly in movements, is we do not give things life cycles. As soon as something starts, we want to take it down, because we're trained in combat, and we're trained in critique, and we're trained in taking things down. And we don't give our organizing, our collectives, our practice time to mature, to find its foundations, to figure out. We love to say in movements, oh, embrace the messy, and when it gets messy, we're like, we're out, we've left. What did you say earlier? Left the building, like when your soul leaves earth or something. Essentially, that's what we do. And I really want to invite us in to a practice of letting us find our foundations, and letting things have a life cycle, and being in that practice. Because I'm watching so many of our incredible peers, comrades be taken out, our incredible leaders be taken out. And it's like, there's not an uprising happening right now. And I've been with peers, and I just got back from California with incredible movement leaders. And one of the things that they said is, well, people are afraid to lead, people are afraid to be visible because we've just been smear campaign after another. We just don't want to take that hit. And so I really want to encourage us to um, let things have a generosity, a fierce generosity in this time, because that's what we're going to need. And we're going to need folks to be um, courageous and know that that courage isn't going to be held alone, that there are others, and that is going to generate accountability. Like, I can speak for myself. Like, anytime that I'm in a bold experiment, I know who I'm answering to because I know those people are at my back. So I know that there are people I have to look in the eye when I fuck up, or they will pull me up like this one and folks on the team and be like, yo, like, what was going on there? And so encouraging us to have more space around our arc. And then a final thing on that arc is we're talking about healing. We get rearranged in our healing. A lot of our funk comes to the surface, and we're like, we stop at that point. We put the brake on, or as you said, we put it on each other. And there is a level of, given in movement, most of us are depleted, most of our capacity. Like, how can we ask for help, but also have a discernment about how we attend to the funk or the arc of transformation, all the things that come to the top as we're being rearranged, and putting the appropriate teams around us, because we need all of us. And sometimes that labor can be disproportionate, or we're going to the identifiable folks. And then it's again that invitation of more of us need to be skilled, more of us needs to be reliable, more of us need to be trustworthy. So just holding those two.
Thank you both so much. Ancestor June Jordan, when she said we're the ones that we've been waiting for, like, that's with me all the time. But she didn't go, we're the ones we've been waiting for, and said, oh yeah, that's nice, that's easy. Yo, nobody's gonna come save us. I just need, like, it's us. It really is us. A few years ago, I was pontificating about something, and my son said to me, but if not you, then who? Right? And I want to say that not as burden, but as responsibility. Because we're, the right organ, they don't even like each other. They don't freaking like each other. But what they are is committed to fucking with us, right? And so here's the thing, like, we have our feminist movements here, like, really, this is the shit that is happening. We're like, oh, a trans woman. I'm like, really? That's the question that you're asking right now? That's the thing that you're asking in this moment? Right? Like, we are debating like people's lives. We are invalidating human lives based on some standards of humanity that we are setting. And I'm like, get the fuck over it. Trans woman, a woman, end of. Done. Finish. Like, can we move on? Right? It's like, literally, we are stuck in the weeds in ways that are stopping us from becoming the people that we need to be. Because the thing is, we already are the people. So, like, what are we gonna do to build the capacity to, as Prentis rightfully asked us, to meet this moment? Like, what are we gonna do? And so some of that for me is, can we please develop the skill or the art of skillfully disagreeing? Can we just do that? I don't have to agree with you. Fam, I don't even have to like you. Right? What I want to know is, can we move together? Can we move together when shit gets real? Can we do what needs to be done? Can we have a difficult conversation? Can we have a difficult conversation and come back in the room? Can I own when I leaked my crap all over you and go, I deeply apologize, and here, this is how I'm going to fix my behavior, and actually then do it? Can we do that? Because our movements are falling apart and flailing, because we actually, like Farzana said, like, we're like, yeah, it's gonna get messy. And I'm like, that's not a euphemism. Because guess what? Like, we're individually messy, and then we're gonna show up in movement spaces, and like, we're gonna bring our mess into the space. And so it requires that we pay attention to that. There is something around the piece around collective care. So I'm just gonna, I might have to go church ways now. All right, no. All right. So I appreciate that my posture is old movement. You validate your life by dying on the hill. I come from that kind of. It's not right. It's really not healthy. And also, I am also engaging in context where people are like, I'm going to take care of myself. And I'm like, I appreciate that. But when you're taking care of yourself without thinking, can I rise up today? Then you're looking after you, but not after us. So I am like I, and you are you, right? And my training is I. So I'm like, how do we move together? Right? And so I want more of us, Rasta philosophy, basic. I want more of us to be in the I. Because if you, and I'm not saying like, yo, do what you need to do to take care of yourself. We all know our own edges. We all know our own thresholds, but there is something that is demanding a different kind of resilience from us right now, which cannot simply be that you rest while I'm falling over. Right? Like it does not work like that. And I say this, and I'm gonna say this. I'm coming at this from a deep disability justice like basis. So I'm recognizing that we are all in different places in our body and in our minds, right? I'm not. This is not me glossing over that, but I'm like we have to have. There's something around the level of fragility that exists in our movements right now that we need to attend to, because we need to build muscle right now. The right ain't got no problem building muscle. As Prentis said, them have ceremony. Them a look after them one another. Right? They're going church. They're doing what they need to do. They're in dance together. Can we not bring, and I don't want their thing because it's icky, but can we not bring what we need to do from what we know together in order to make sure that we are able to move together? FK often says, we know how to come together, but we don't know how to move together. And we don't know how to move together because when we fall out, we fall apart. And actually, my invitation is, can we keep getting back in the room? And I'm not saying that we should do that in ways where we allowed people to ride roughshod over us. Please make we look after ourselves. But can we develop a different kind of resilience that allows us to be like, our movements require that we disagree, that we don't have to like each other, but we can love our collective humanity. Please, I beg. Yeah. We like we've got people in this room, like we got imagination people, we got dreamers, we got warriors, we got all the magic. I mean, look, Amara down here smiling, Imi down there taking picture. Like this is the bit, like we got skills in the room, right? We got wise ones in the room. Like if we don't hold this moment as like, let's do this, then I'm worrying about whether we will actually be seeing the end of the world. Right, because we're facing it. And I say that not to instill fear, but say that to ask us to recognize the moment that we're in right now. Let's read what we're dealing with. There's a lot of shit, but look at the beauty in this space. Look how not sweet. Let's draw for the sweetness and the niceness. Let's inject some beauty into the movement, but let's inject some resilience. I also want to say, as a last piece, Farzana said about spiritual warfare. In Rasta, we say, I and I not come to fight flesh and blood, but spiritual wickedness in high and low places. Right? I'm going to ask us, for those of us who know how to pray, pray. Right? If you have your rites and your rituals, do what you need to do, because this time is also calling us into deep spiritual practice. So, whatever God you serve or not, do your thing in order to support us, because we also need those that are going to be willing to get down on the prayer mat and do what is needed to be done. Ashe.
Um, we've got about 15 minutes for some questions. Yeah, a bit more. Nishma said more, so more. And I want to take this and we'll use these two. Or maybe we can grab like 2 questions at a time.
Yeah, we have a roving mic, and if you don't want to speak on the mic, I have some sticky notes and pens. So if you prefer to write it, you can write it down as well. Coming.
And I know you guys are gonna text me from online, questions that are coming from online. So we're not forgetting you online folks. Okay, I've got some questions. Solomon, do you want to go first?
Yeah, is it
Go
okay?
for it. Yeah, go
Hey,
for it.
hey, hey, I just want to say that was magical healing. That was life giving, life affirming, and just joyous. So thank you so much. So I just quick question I wanted to ask is what can so going beyond healing, I think, particularly the Western notion of healing, what can we learn from disability justice, radical vacuum regulations, and most critically, love, what can we learn from love to design ecosystems of curiosity, compassion, and courage. Thank you so much.
I feel like you're asking a question you probably got the answer to. Honestly. Um yeah. Uh but I will say, was interesting for me when I came into somatics 2009, 8, there was like this convergence, like transformative justice, disability justice, like all these frameworks are being articulated and deeply healing justice, deeply influencing each other. So to me, when I think about healing justice, the foundation of it is disability justice at the foundation. Transformative justice is disability justice, is healing justice. There's a place at which those are so deeply connected and the impulses are almost the same in a way. So I feel that this work around healing, and that's why I'm like, I want to trouble the word healing. It's really because of what I've been taught um, through my disability justice teachers. It's like what Western medicine in particular has done, and maybe that's not the whole story, but this kind of fix it energy, like we're gonna fix ourselves. I mean, you see it now in the like optimization bros. It's like I'm gonna calculate how I could be the most optimal human being. Isn't actually about well being, isn't actually about quote unquote health. It's about becoming a model for this system. And what I think healing could be about is being with who we are and how that necessarily ties us to each other and how our well being is deeply intertwined with each other. And I think this piece you said around curiosity, I'm like, I often think about this in a spiritual context of like how I feel so much about this current moment is like folks that think they know God and to come to God humbly or to come to that with a curiosity so that I can see the miracle of creation in every being, in every life. And I go, oh, wow, look at how, for me, y'all don't have, but God has shown up here. Look at what God is teaching me. It's that humility for me, that curiosity about life so I don't put myself falsely above life, above anyone else's life, but I sit here in my position and I encounter life and aliveness. I encounter the miracle and the perspective and the learning and the ways that I'm uniquely connected. I feel like that's actually what we are. That's the core of so much of this work is to reposition ourselves back into the collective so that we can encounter each other, so that we can learn from each other, so that I can learn from you, so that you learn from me, so that we share that out because there's a piece of the puzzle that each of us has. But if I have a perspective of I know, and here I am, God's surrogate, to enforce God rules, that's to me a profound mistake and a terror actually that keeps us from meeting each other. So yeah, thank you for that question because I feel like that is the place that we're trying to get. How do we meet each other? How do I meet you? How do you meet me? And learn. Does anybody else want to touch on that?
Yeah. Thank you, Suleiman. Thank you. There's something around, like, I love the piece around curiosity. There's something around, if we could, for a moment, stop creating hierarchies of life, because that's part of why we're in some of the conversations we're in right now, because we're like, who gets to be a proper this, who gets to be a proper woman, who gets to be a proper man, who gets to be, like, so if we could be like, I witness you, I can be with you, we are different, but I can completely honor you, and I'm curious about, not in an anthropological way, but I'm curious about who you are in this respectful, loving way, then that might just give us a completely different energy and a different way of being in relationship with each other. I don't have to understand everything. I don't have to get everything about your reality. I just have to be like, I can be with you, you know?
I just want to kind of maybe flesh out a few things, because this conversation around particularly disability justice and politicized somatics is one, and just like a shout out to folks who are part of our movement medicine cohort, because that particular work around somatics is one that we've really kind of pushed and been inquiry. And I'm like looking at Tumu and Kim and others who've been teachers and also like really invited us to like rigor around disability justice, and Sadia and Lani and Michelle who have keep inviting us back into commitment. And it's not just their work, it's all of our work, but holding that we have these frameworks like healing justice, like transformative justice, like disability justice, and they are beautiful articulations that need to keep getting defined, applied, amended, reworked. And disability justice is still quite new as a framework in broader movement context, but also in the UK, we're still in a rights-based context. So we have work to do. And I also really want to appreciate the HDL team and Stephanie in China and others who like really, keep inviting us into that practice, because that particular frame that's so beneficial to racial capitalism and the colonial project of cure or be useless is not native to us. Like, that's not who we are.
Yeah.
And sickness is not failure, disability is not failure. And a lot of our ancestral traditions, they were forms of like medicine. And so coming back to this point of like medicine, in the Cree tradition, they don't say I am sick, you say a sickness has come to me, because it's a signifier of what must stop, what must be attended to. And also that, we live lives, particularly in movement and with the trauma that has brought us to movement, duty bound. And Raj Kumari, again, one of our peers, says like we come to movement in our trauma as a result of duty, but not as a result of purpose. And if we are in an inquiry of like, what is the medicine I carry, then we're bringing us more in alignment to our purpose. And then all of us, it really is honest about our reality, which is all of us have some role, something to offer. And we are part of activating that in each other and knowing that in each other, and, letting that flourish and be in that mutual activation of each other's medicine. So thank you, Suleiman, for that question as well. Nishma, did you have other questions, or should I take some from the...
Does anyone have any other questions from the audience?
Mhm. Yeah, can we take two questions together? Great.
Thank you all. I'm curious about, because I really believe in this idea of finding ways to disagree and moving alongside each other, even if we don't like each other. And I'm curious about tactics, strategies, ways that you've moved through this, because I'm thinking about the various times I've been in spaces, organizations, movements where things have fallen apart, or where I've chosen to step away, actually, because I'm like, I'm not sure this other person can come with me, right? But then how do we move forward if one person or one kind of the various groups or whatever it might be? I'm just curious for any advice in this realm. Thank you.
One more question?
Hello. So first, I'm from America, California, and yeah, you can hear it. Um, and this, been in movement for a long time. Uh, the amount of rage, it feels so, and I think, underneath the rage is probably grief. I like for those of us who have been doing this work for a really long time. I don't the feeling of rage and like the losses and the harm that is being done to our communities right now, and like such a visceral and like intimate way, like it's actually really difficult to see our way clear in a way that wasn't true in 2016,
Yeah.
in 2020. Like it actually is hard to see our way clear. So just if you have any thoughts on that.
First question?
I don't have.
I can do the first question. Thank you for asking that. My colleague and sister friend there is Dorette is sitting in the audience, and we've built up a relationship of disagreement and an agreement. I also sometimes I disagree with Farzana. I there's something around whether I think what I've done in that relationship is we come back, and I think and sometimes people have to leave. Sometimes we've got to leave for a well-being. Sometimes we've got to leave because it's not conflict, it's harm, right? Or it's harm that in that moment feels irreparable. But I think there is something about coming back in the room and owning our stuff and staying in the conversation, like literally, okay, I know that I'm getting defensive right now. This is what I'm feeling, or that's what I heard. I completely misunderstood that. I'm really sorry. It literally is that. Like, I feel like in many ways, we've fumbled our way through that. Like we've built it up over time. It's not like we didn't have anybody teaching us how to do it. We were just like, I love you too much to not be in relationship with you. That was always the driving force, and then what that meant is that the thing then had to be spoken, and if something didn't need to be spoken because it was just for me to go over there in the corner and deal with my own shit, then also owning that, like, I don't need to throw up all over you, right? Like, let me go and figure this out. But coming back into the room and being like, can we have this conversation, and owning that the conversation may be seriously awkward, because sometimes it is. We sometimes disagree on something, and Fazana might be like, "Can I cross-check this with you?" Or that's not what was happening, right? And it's just like it's staying with it. That's like I don't know if that's helpful, but that's literally the only thing that I've learned from the thing is that I don't have a clear guideline, and it doesn't matter how many little things I read online about how to do it. When I actually get in the conversation, it still feels shitty, and I still am like, oh, okay, I'm not sure, but then I stay with it. And like, I feel uncomfortable, but I love you. So can we do this together? You know?
Thank you so much. Like really, yeah, yeah. um, really appreciating this question. And I was someone whose particular shape was conflict averse. And it's been my training and ongoing training to lean in to those hard spaces. And this is where somatics has played and embodiment practices has played a huge part, because for my own, what kicks off in me in need of safety and like is to be like, I need to like leave and somehow leave, even if it's disassociate, and tap out in order to come back to myself first. And I think being able to find practices that allow you to, this is a survival response or a stress response. So we don't shame it, we don't pathologize it, but we do think about what strategies we have, and we get curious about whether this is the appropriate response. And sometimes it will be that there's a discernment, and maybe you're not necessarily walking path with somebody. Yeah. But what we don't do, and I think that happens in movement, is like we undermine movement integrity by doing all the other BS that we do, and the gossiping and projecting and picking up other people's battles and weaponizing, and all of that stuff becomes like rife in our movements. And so really, you know, allow yourself and for all of us, like the tools to resource to be able to show up in whatever that is. And sometimes that might be years, and that's okay. But being commitment to the other person, holding the other person's humanity, which is a harder thing to do. And then if you are in a commitment to the other person's humanity, what actions are left for you? What choices are left for you? What can you and can't you do? And sometimes that comes at great cost. Like I often, speak to Marai, like sometimes I won't speak on something and I can feel that's the poison that's like I'm swallowing. But when Marai will remind me, this is movement integrity. Like this, we're holding a bigger picture, we're holding a vision. And so inviting discernment, allowing grace and spaciousness, but also towards what we're longing for, towards our liberation. And just as a personal reflection, I did a transformative accountability process around a particular perpetrator of violence, and it took 2 years. And it's not something I share out loud, but what I did in reflection, I was very young and I didn't have an abolitionist framework, is I put every form of like resource or recovery around me because I knew I didn't have that bandwidth. And that was like therapy twice a week, like knowing there was one person I could go and talk to. And so if you are going to embark on a process that requires a lot from you, then be resource and choose as much of that. And that included what Enkem said to me once, was like pause and eating like donuts and burgers in bed for like 3 weeks straight. Like these are the things I needed to do. And like no shade, no shame, like do what supports your comfort and let that resource you.
Speak to both your questions. The first one probably very quickly because it's been really covered. Well, I think the first thing I would say is that we should practice conflict before you have it. Like practice understanding what it is that you bring, what it is that you're holding. Practice together and practice by yourself before you have the conflict. Because sometimes it's like we're in the middle of it and everything is present for us and we're like, okay, what are the tools? And you have about this much bandwidth for the tools at that point. You're trying to bring a lot of tools to it. But yeah, it's practice before to build the capacity for it. And if you're working with a team deeply, like when I work with my team, it's like I reveal to them what it is that I do and what helps me recenter so that they can help me in that. It's not a mystery. It's not like, oh, I failed because I'm in my stuff. I'm going to be in my stuff at some point. So let each other know that. It's again a question of culture. What's the culture doing? Is it putting conflict off until the final moment? Or is it integrating it as a part of how we get down with each other, period? Do you know how to move through it? Have you practiced? So that, and then, it's like, it's really hard to create room for another person if you don't create room for yourself. I think that ends up being like codependency or something. If you're creating space for somebody, but you don't know how to do it for yourself. So again, it's like, what skills are we building ahead of time? Because if we are in conflict and someone just simply does not have the capacity or skill to look in, they haven't practiced that, there's not anything that you can do in that moment, actually. Because it has to be worked, that has to be a capacity that's developed before that moment to look in and check it out. I had an argument with my partner this week. And what we were excited about was at the time, like coming back and clarifying, it's shortening. We still had the argument. And then he came back and I was like, only 15% of that was about you. And I'm sorry that I put the rest of that on you. That wasn't appropriate. And I didn't know. But it didn't take me that long to get there because I have a practice of trying to figure out what's going on in here. So I think that to me, it's a question of culture, not of what is happening in this very heightened moment, but what's happening in the other moments. And the question about rage in this moment, I don't think there's an answer that any of us have. I don't think. But one thing that I often reflect on, I think about ring shouts or the kind of technology of enslaved or formerly enslaved folks in the South. Technologies that they created to process grief, again, that they didn't do one time, but they did them regularly because of the magnitude of the grief, that it became a ritual that we do. We invite this energy because it's there. And if we don't have a place to put it, I'm going to put it in my relationships with my kids. I'm going to put it in the places of love that I have, the places of safety. I'm going to put that there because that's how big it is. It keeps visiting. It keeps arriving. It keeps multiplying. So again, to me, it's a question of culture. It's like, what are we doing regularly to metabolize that? Not that it's going to be done. You know what I'm saying? That's why I really take it serious. I'm like, I think we have to do this now. We have to go, oh, we're afraid? Okay. What are we going to do regularly to process that fear? Oh, we're grieving, and it feels like a grief that is too big to bear. We're going to not think about how we do that, but we're going to enter the grief together. And we're going to do it as regularly as we need to once again find choice, be present. And even if it visits us again, we know that we have created a place for this, a place to compost it. Our organization got some land, and one of the requirements for me was I need a place where people can scream. People that don't get to scream, I was like, how many acres does it take for people to feel like they can scream? I'm being so for real. How many acres is it where people can feel like they can throw their bodies on the earth and cry? That's what we need, I think. We're trying to have this big grief in these small spaces when really the world should stop for the grief that we feel. So we at least need some space to throw our bodies on the ground and to cry until the tears stop, until we sing a song, until a song comes to us and we do it again. So yeah, I don't have one answer other than, to me, it's that we have to take seriously what we feel, what we are feeling, what we will feel, and make room for it in what we do. I don't think there's another way. We cannot intellectualize what is happening. We can't.
We don't have oh no. We don't have time for more questions, but I might try and complete the space with a very what is it called? Remixed version of a question that we got from folks online, and just to get some concluding words. So, what is a lesson that you've had already, or a lesson you want to kind of send forward from tonight for folks who are interested in deepening your practice? So, do you want to kick us off? We take a moment. We take a beat. I might kick us off, and then you two could have things that I'm kind of really holding from today, but is ongoing as well. And just an affirmation and a recommitment into is being in rehearsal, particularly around and practice around the things that we need to be training for, like conflict. Also around like how we hold those griefs and those moments of crisis that are ongoing, and being in practice. Like there's no other way. The only way is through. And so allowing space for us to be in that training, to be in that and grow capacity around it. And then I'm also holding this piece around spirit and the spiritual warfare, and just thinking about the Cuban and Haitian revolutions and how they called upon the Orishas and that which was bigger than them, that which is vast and more powerful to transform. And then a final piece around um, that the mind can't transform our spiritual reality, and we don't just live in a physical, we don't just have access to a physical plane or a material plane. And so really the level of transformation we need also needs to be felt living, and all of the space in between us. So inviting myself and you into this question of what can transform not just our material reality but also the spiritual reality in which we live in.
Yeah, thank you. The Maori elder, Tariana Turia, who is now an ancestor, and she gave me something a few years ago that says whānau, as in family. We may not have it all together, but together we have it all. And that's kind of what keeps coming to me, that we need to practice, but we have access to the wisdom, we have the skills, we have our bodies hold memories. There's so much here, like just in this room, like we are just a snapshot in terms of our movements. And like looking around, there are folks that I know the deep creative work, the imagination work. I know folks that are building, like literally building, gathering land for us to come together, like doing that work. And so given that we are a fractal, given that we are a room of imaginal cells, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. That's what I'm holding. It requires something. It requires us going to our edges, but I trust us, actually. I trust us. I trust us to lead ourselves through this moment. I trust us to leave a different world 7 generations into the future, and I just ask us to be in the place of thinking always, who are we accountable to? That's kind of the thing for me. Like, so if we can imagine that we're accountable to ancestors and all around us, that we're accountable to soil and stars and future generations, what worlds will we build? Because we're already building worlds here. So how do we expand the worlds that we're already building here? Yeah, that's kind of what I'm holding.
So many things, and so many things that you've all said. I think the one thing that I think I'll offer, um, we had a beaver in our pond, and they take down every tree. I mean, it looked like somebody took an axe to it every day. I was like, another tree is gone. Y'all really don't stop. And I think what I'm learning from the beavers in our pond is making me think about love a lot. And what if we, with that kind of seriousness and rigor, got rid of all the things that stood between us and love, the experience of love? I woke up every day and I'm like, I'm gonna get rid of that, get rid of that, and that, and that. Like the beavers do. That's what I'm feeling. It's like, how do I move all that out of the way? Because it feels like that's where a lot of the confusion is. And I feel a lot of fear sometimes, not all the time. Sometimes I feel fear, and I feel like fear is with us. But I'm also feeling that there's a plane that transcends that fear, and that actually the people that are architecting this current moment, it's their fear their monsters that they shoved under their bed, their boogeymen, their myths, their inventions, you know, that they're unleashing on the world. But it's their fear. It's it's the fear of don't know, it's like it's their smallness. That honestly is not even inherent. It's like there's a deeper truth in them, but they're letting the monsters under their bed run amok on Earth. And so I feel afraid of what they might do. And then there's another level in me. Again, it's that place that can't be touched by anyone where I'm not afraid, actually. Maybe because I know that it's a deep confusion and a deep terror, and you can kind of see it for what it is. Even though it may hurt, even though it does hurt, it does kill. It's where it comes from is their own terror. So that, I'm holding that now. I'm not even sure what all to do with it, but I can see it really clearly most days. And it kind of does something with my fear, helps me see. So that, I'm taking that. And just a lot of gratitude for London. This has been a wonderful 2.5 days in London. Thank you. Thank you for this.
Thank you for being generous with your time. I do want to just point to a few next steps because there are lots of ways that folks can, move on from this space and get involved. And hopefully there are more and more entry points. And then would like to close with just gratitude for all the folks that made this happen. So, Prentis, do you want to say anything about where people can follow up from with you and your books here as well?
You can follow up. I'm going to go sit at the back and sign some books for a few minutes. So if you want to chat, that would be great. I'm online for now until I am not. But my podcast, Becoming the People, is going to really y'all. We're gonna be coming back for another long season. We're gonna be like we're like working on making this thing. We're gonna keep going. So yes. So please look out for that. It will be coming back and will be long. So pray for me in that.
Prayers up. In terms of next steps for Rage, Jalal and Alex from our team actually hold Rage spaces for anyone who's interested in that. And then we've also got like a weekly practice space online on Wednesdays at 9:30 for folks. You can find it on Healing Justice website. And then just a few little things that are happening this year. There's a collaboration with Civic Square where hopefully we'll have Enkem and Defo, Stacey, and hopefully Prentis as well. So we can just have more touch points. Migrants in Culture do a Saturday school, particularly for folks who are doing border abolition and somatic and embodied transformation work. And then Lumos Transforms, if you go on their website, are offering up to 150 folks who are in movement organizations free training. So just go on Lumos Transforms website. We'll definitely at HJL be tweeting it, and it's amazing to be training with Enkem. She's, been a great teacher of ours. And then at HJL, we'll also be doing another a program sometime over the summer with Enkem and Rebecca, our former co-director, who's just a ninja. And then ongoingly, we're working towards training more folks in politicized somatics. So you can look out for movement medicine and you can speak to Nishma about it. So more and more, and there's an abundance of incredible other folks who are doing amazing work. So find your people and find your place and just keep doing that work. And then I'll just wrap up with deep, deep gratitude to Nishma and Inaya, who have been phenomenal. Our film and photography, Rainbow Collective, Richard and Toby, and then our incredible BSL, Jackie and Sophie. HJL team, Rebecca, who's also you did really encourage this to happen before you tapped out. So yeah, just also gratitude to the team for all the support. Rich Mix, folks online, and of course, Prentis and Marai. Thank you so much. Maybe we can just love on them one final time. And me. And me.